I lied about my entire life to the man I love. For 2 years, I built a perfect version of myself, a version I thought he deserved. But now the truth is catching up to me, and I don't know if our love can survive the real me. I remember the day I met him like it was yesterday. I was sitting in a corner trying to hide behind my laptop when he walked in. He had this energy about him, confident but not arrogant. When he smiled at me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope. He asked me what I was working on, and without thinking, I told him I was writing a novel. The truth, I was filling out job applications, desperately trying to make ends meet. But he looked so impressed, and I didn't want to ruin the moment. So I kept the lie going. One lie turned into another. I told him I'd graduated from a prestigious university, that I worked in marketing, that I came from a loving family. In reality, I dropped out of college, worked as a waitress, and hadn't spoken to my parents in years. But every time he looked at me like I was the most amazing person in the world, I convinced myself that the lies didn't matter. With every milestone, the lies grew bigger. His friends thought I was this successful, well-educated woman. His family welcomed me with open arms, telling me how proud they were of everything I'd accomplished. I wanted to tell him the truth, but every time I tried, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, too scared to jump. I'd leave my shift exhausted, change into something professional looking, and pretend I'd just come from the office. I thought I could keep the facade up forever. But deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. It started small questions I couldn't answer, stories that didn't add up. He never said anything, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. And then there were the moments of guilt that kept me up at night. How could I say I loved him when I was lying to him every day? My best friend was the only one who knew the truth. She begged me to come clean, saying it would only get worse the longer I waited. But I couldn't. I was terrified that if he knew the real me, he'd leave. And I couldn't lose him. Not after everything we'd built together. The day it all started to unravel was the day he found a piece of mail I'd forgotten to hide. It was addressed to me at the diner where I worked, and when he asked me about it, I froze. I could see the confusion and hurt on his face, and for the first time, I realized just how much my lies had hurt him. I told him it was a side job, something I did for extra money. He seemed to believe me, but I knew it was only a temporary fix. The truth was a ticking time bomb, and I was running out of time. It all came crashing down one night when he overheard a conversation I was having with a coworker. I'll never forget the look on his face when he confronted me. It wasn't anger, it was betrayal. He asked me why I'd lied, why I didn't trust him enough to be honest. And for the first time, I had no answers. He told me he needed time to think, that he didn't know if he could trust me again. As I watched him walk out the door, I realized I'd destroyed the one thing I'd been trying so hard to protect. I spent days trying to figure out how to fix what I'd broken. In the end, I decided the only way to move forward was to tell him everything. I wrote him a letter, explaining my childhood, my struggles, and why I'd felt the need to create a version of myself I thought he'd love. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I didn't know if he'd forgive me. I didn't even know if he'd respond. But for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. I'd finally stopped running from the truth. When he finally called me, I was terrified. But instead of anger, he spoke with sadness. He told me he loved me, but he didn't know if he could ever fully trust me again. And I realized that love isn't enough if it's built on lies. We decided to take a break to figure out who we were without each other. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but I knew it was the right one. For the first time in years, I was learning how to be honest with him and with myself. Looking back, I don't regret loving him. He taught me what it means to be vulnerable, to face your fears, and to let go of the version of yourself you think people want. I don't know if we'll find our way back to each other, but I do know this: love can only grow where the truth lives. Would you forgive someone who lied to protect the love they built? Please comment and tell me, what should I do?